Hey all, it's Joel here. This interview is the third and final part of the series, which means I need to continue on with my service mission duties, and basically I'm disappearing again until July. So as we wrap up, again, a huge thanks to the team at Waymo who made this possible, and I will see you again eventually. Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me out here, taking the time. Just as you guys scale up 5th Gen in Phoenix and San Francisco and in LA, it's really exciting to watch it. So I'm really glad I get to be observing.
You're part of the Waymo journey. One of our most prolific riders, if not the most prolific. So yeah, we're very happy to have you here.
I heard there's a couple of guys that like actually take it to work every day. So I think they have me beat. But
yeah, one of them is standing right over there.
Yeah. But so I've heard from a lot of sources, especially that, and I've kind of experienced it now, that the 5th Gen driver and Waymo Driver is in many ways a really significant advancement on the 4th generation. And I was just kind of wondering, what are kind of some of the biggest like advancements? I guess what are some of the biggest things that have been worked on and improved and more ready for rolling out?
Yeah, it's a great question. Clearly, we're sitting amongst 5th Gen vehicles right now, so it's actually, this is a great place to talk about this.
Yeah.
I guess I would start at the bottom, at the base vehicle, and so it's an electric vehicle, which is a difference versus the Pacifica, which is a hybrid. But that obviously is a change. It affects some of how we actually have to develop the thing, and also in our collaboration with Jaguar, that was obviously a consideration.
Yeah.
Then probably now to the more juicy stuff, the self-driving system. So. At the end of the day, we made improvements to pretty much every piece of it. That, from our perspective, we took everything we learned from the Gen 4 vehicle, carried it over to Gen 5, and made improvements. So, radar, higher resolution, critical sensor for a lot of different environments. LiDAR, we actually removed one LiDAR from the Gen 4 vehicle. So, on the Gen 4, there's 3. There's a short range, a mid-range, and a long range. On the excuse me, did I say Gen 4?
Gen 4. Yeah, you said Gen 4.
On the Gen 4, there's 3. There's the short, medium, and long range. On Gen 5, we've combined it down to 2. So we have the close range ones, which you see here, which we actually extended the range of slightly. And then we have a mid and long range LiDAR, which is the one on top that you see. And this one has longer distance, higher resolution, better reliability, robustness, cameras. So we added more. We modified the placement of them, so you can see actually right here, this is a good example. This is a camera that doesn't exist on the 4th generation one, that actually allows you to kind of see from different angles. The computer, more powerful, allows us to process more things, run more of the modern technology from a software perspective. All of this at half the cost of the Gen 4. So this is a huge step forward for us. The thing that I like to think about, though, is that the Gen 4 was the right platform for that moment of Waymo's history. It is still in service, obviously.
Yeah.
We put an enormous amount of effort into that. So what I like to do is I like to think that we took the best of Gen 4, combined it with these modern techniques, and that's what we brought together in Gen 5.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Yeah, I did notice more cameras. That is more to, and then what looks like little LEDs over here, like
close-in. This is part of our close-in sensing system, though. So this is designed to help us see things right around the car.
Cool. I was wondering, when you moved from the all-around dome to separate stuff, how you would handle like weather, like when it starts to rain on the stuff. Like how would you? And then I saw some closer pictures, and I think there's like individual. Is there like individual wiper systems on each one, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so we do have a cleaning system. It uses a few different techniques to clean different parts of it. So there's a wiper, there is compressed air, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so you can see in San Francisco, this happens more often than it does here, but in fog, there can be condensation. And so we actually have a cleaning system that can help the car see.
Handy.
And that's something that's necessary for driving in the different weather configurations.
That's awesome. So my next main question is, what role has rider feedback played in like influencing the changes as you move forward, like in bringing new features to Waymo One and new changes to the 5th generation driver from the 4th gen? Like kind of like since the initial launch, since like rider feedback started coming in.
Yeah.
And like how'd that all go down, I guess?
Yeah, great question. So first, I would say our riders are kind of at the heart of everything we do. Our top internal priority is safety. You probably hear that from us a lot, but it really is true. Our riders are really why we're doing all of this. We want to help cities. We want to make those societal changes around safety, the way urban planning works. All of that stuff is stuff we're interested in. It starts with safety, though, and our riders. So when we're collecting, or not collecting, but rather interacting with our riders, when we get feedback from them via the app, which you're obviously very familiar with, I like to think of it in two ways. There's direct feedback that they give us and indirect feedback. Direct feedback would be, hey, this pickup location didn't work well, and they leave a comment for us.
Yeah.
We also have a user research team that will go out and talk to riders, interview them, do surveys, and this is information that helps us understand what's working well, what's not working well, what are features people would be interested in. All of this comes back to our developers. Another example, when there's something that happens mid-ride, and whether it's a hard brake or something like that, and somebody marks that in the app.
On there, like also on screen too.
Yeah, or on the screen. We will have a triage team review that, and you can imagine an engineer who's working on hard brake events. They'll actually combine a lot of examples like that from our riders into a data set that lets them say, okay, these are a bunch of situations that I need to do something about to make the system perform better in this type of circumstance. So that's all types of direct feedback. Indirect feedback is going to become even more important for us over time. But what I mean by that is riders, for lack of a better term, voting with their feet. Do they keep using our service or not?
Right.
And so as we've been public in Chandler, as we're going public in downtown, and hopefully to more areas and cities in the near future, we're going to see more and more people who basically continue to ride with us or don't. And when they don't, we'll want to understand why.
Yeah.
And all of this is basically a necessary part of us learning about what's next and how to grow the product and the service.
Does the team find that there's, you said indirect feedback, it kind of, what that makes me think of is like little bits of friction in like the user experience, the little things that people might not notice, but kind of like once you pick up on it, and then like once it's like fixed, it really kind of improves the experience overall, either like a little bit or a lot. And like, is there ways you can like, kind of pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean, so this is the way a lot of companies who have any sort of app, they'll try to understand how people are using it, and they'll try to figure out ways to understand what's working well, what's not working well. So if we see a lot of people who are trying to search for something, and we can figure out that we're not giving good search results, for example, that's a type of friction where that tells us, hey, we need to work on our search results, so we can provide a better guess at where you're trying to go, and then make that part of the app experience easier.
One thing I noticed that was relatively new was there's this thing in the app now where you type in where you want, and now there's a button that says View All on the map, and I think that's relatively new. I don't take rides as often as I used to, but I think that was a really, really nice little thing to add there. That makes me pretty happy, because then I can go, I want to go to Circle K, but I don't know which one is 3505 West University or something. It's like, so it's really good to see that visually. So I'm glad it's being like,
it's like, it would be an easy mistake to make, to accidentally go to the wrong one. You're meeting someone somewhere and you go to the and so it's just kind of simple stuff like that we pay a lot of attention to try to just make it a little bit smoother each time.
Oh yeah, so I've heard in interviews that the fifth generation Waymo Driver is designed to be more weather resistant. Weather can be a lot of things to deal with. Like especially here, heat, like trying to cool everything down, trying to keep it operational, like rain, fog, as you mentioned, dust. And I was kind of wondering, can you talk about like what sorts of challenges that weather can present, and like how the Waymo Driver has been kind of toughened up to meet those challenges?
The fifth generation is the platform upon which we want to go to massive scale.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, first, weather can be hard for humans and robot drivers.
Oh yeah.
So we know in Phoenix, you guys get torrential rains here, you get the dust storms, and these are pretty difficult conditions to drive in. For us, the 5th gen, this is another area that we really focused on when we were designing this thing, and I'll go through the same progression. The radar does have higher resolution and some new features that help us drive in weather conditions. So, for example, San Francisco, fog is a big thing. It can see through fog.
Yeah.
I mentioned the cleaning system. And so, humans, we use windshield wipers to clean the windshield, and that's how we see. So we had to figure out a comparable system for our sensors so that they can see. And so that is a change in the Gen 5. Third area are LiDARs and machine learning. So one area that we put a lot of work into, the way LiDARs work is it's a spinning laser, and it sends out a pulse of light, and if it hits a droplet in the air, it could get a return on that, and you could think that there's something in space, which there is. It's a water droplet, but it's not something that's relevant for driving. And so one of the many applications of machine learning in this vehicle and in Gen 5 specifically is a lot more filtering around ignoring things like raindrops or dust particles in the air. And this is, again, necessary for being able to drive in different types of weather.
Awesome. I've taken some friends and even elderly people along with me for rides in the Pacificas, and really they got used to it or bored shockingly quickly. And I was kind of wondering, what are some of the key considerations in designing something that's able to do that, like able to take that like weird experience of an autonomous vehicle and then just make it so normal so quickly? Like, what did it take? And
that completely matches my experience of the product and bringing other people along over the years. It's the first few minutes people are a little white-knuckled trying to figure out what's happening, and then gradually they get bored, and eventually their phone's out and they're like reading an article or something like that. Totally resonates with me. I think of it in a couple of things. We want the space to feel like a trusted space. We want the driver to feel like a trusted driver. And what that looks like, what that feels like, is that you get some information from the car on what it's thinking, what it's doing next. So on the display, that's why we show the route. I mean, that's an easy one, but show where we're intending to go. In a lot of circumstances where there's pedestrians around or vehicles around, you can see that we highlight specific ones, which are the ones that are most directly relevant to what we're doing right now. So if we're stopped waiting for a pedestrian and it's highlighted green, we're waiting for that pedestrian. And you can see that it's crossing this way. Another feature that I like, I don't know if you experienced this in your ride today, is when you exit the vehicle and you're about to open the door, it'll say
vehicle approaching
or cyclist approaching. And that's because the car is seeing that there's someone there and it's trying to prevent you from opening the door right into somebody's path.
Yeah, that did happen once today. But yeah, it did like go, hey. It did that little chime, which was sound design A+. Cool. Super effective at going like, hey, heads up, pay attention to.
And that's just like a small way where we want to, that's just a good safety feature, right? But then B, it also has this effect of, you can see like, hey, the car is aware that there's this biker coming, and that it would not be a good idea to open the door right now.
Yeah, that was really interesting to see.
Yeah.
So, do you have any favorite stories of like strange edge cases or events that happened that just, like, I guess wouldn't like come up in simulation? What kinds of things like come up in the field, and then like how do you deal with them? Like, what is the, like, especially strange ones that you just like wouldn't think of?
I mean, I'll give one of our the strangest that I've ever seen. It's a notorious example of we had a woman in a motored wheelchair who was chasing some ducks out of the road with a broom right in the middle of the road, trying to get them out of the way. And our car encountered that, and fortunately we paused and we waited. She finished shooing the ducks out of the way, and then we proceeded on our way. To me, there are a lot of edge cases, but I think about, we have a lot of on-road experience.
Right.
You've seen our cars around here for many years. We've tested in over 25 cities over the last decade plus. And so we're trying to see as much as we can and bring all of that back into the system. At the end of the day, you can simplify a whole lot of this whole problem into know what you want to do, know what's in front of you, know what others are about to do, and then do the right thing, which is usually a safe defensive action, which makes for a predictable, comfortable drive. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we're going for. And so even if you encounter one of these things that is a little bit unexpected, often if you just pause and wait,
Yeah.
it will resolve in a way where you can figure out what to do next.
Yeah, one thing I remember from one of my rides is even something as small as like a bird just walking in the road. There was a point where my Pacifica came to a slow and a stop, like just in a neighborhood with nobody around, and there was no stop sign posted, and so I was wondering what is, so I like look over and there's just a bird walking in the middle of the road, and then it just goes on the sidewalk, and I was like, I'm just like really impressed.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting, and then trying to balance that with what if there's other drivers around that are going really fast, and like how do you balance like running over a bird versus but I don't know, maybe that's less of a something to think about, but I don't know. I just thought it was cool that it slowed down for the bird.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Yeah, I mean, one thing you said there that I think is pretty important is that I mean, you've obviously driven around the East Valley a lot, and you know that that's not necessarily a very easy place to drive. 45-mile-an-hour roads, 3 lanes in each direction, people going 50, 60.
Coming out of
faster.
places.
Making unprotected lefts across 3 of those lanes is complicated.
Into the sun.
Into the sun, exactly.
Unprotected left, facing into the sun.
And so when I think about like where Waymo is at right now, I can, in my mind, I can imagine this. We have what we're doing in San Francisco, downtown Phoenix. These are denser areas, tend to be slower, a little bit more interaction with pedestrians. And that's probably a lot of what you saw today, right?
Absolutely.
And the driver has to be a little bit more assertive, still maintain the same safety, but be a little bit more assertive about getting through those more crowded situations. And then you add to that, well, what we're doing on the 45-mile-an-hour roads, higher speed, challenging in a different way. Those 2 things together, plus what we're doing in VIA, which is the freeways, we're starting to see a fairly complete capability set, and that's why we're kind of trying to take more steps throughout getting this out there, starting to expand.
That's great. Yeah, I really love seeing the trucks on the freeway as well. And then freeway testing started with the iPaces as well. I heard that was tweeted out. So yeah, there's been a couple of times that I'm going to and from somewhere, and I just like pull up next to iPace in early morning rush hour, and it just becomes a little more real every time I see that. So it is really cool. Yeah. I think we have a little bit of time, so I have some silly questions.
Ooh, okay.
That kind of like not really serious, but anyway.
Let's do it.
Okay, so there's like at trade shows.
Okay.
I saw it looks like a 1/8 scale iPace, like full custom die cast. I'm like wondering, when is Waymo going to open a merch store, and when can I buy a little iPace to put on my desk?
That is a great question. I don't know. Julianne, are we going to open a merch store?
I don't know. I know there's a lot of requests from employees, as you might imagine, for everything merch and swag. So I'm sure they're working through those, and then they figure out how to take it external. But
I don't know.
I love that.
Probably
idea.
not a big priority, but I mean, hey, that's pretty cool. I mean,
I don't know. Riders love swag.
Yeah.
Well,
I love it.
Express that that's what they would like, as rewards or things like that. So,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Every time there's a promo where it's like, hey, you want to get a hoodie or you want to get a hat? Totally all over that.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And then I was gonna ask about a dark mode for the Waymo One app, and then I realized, and one of my family members told me that the iOS app has a dark mode and the Android doesn't yet.
Yes.
So
yet is the operative word. It's on the list.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, that's not fair. But anyway, well, that's been
no. Yeah,
much.
It is on the list.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
Excellent. Okay, so one thing that's just been kind of a weird bugbear. Is that even the right word? I don't know. But there's a point where, so like, I'm a special case because I have to take 4 minutes to set up my cameras in these cars. And so when I hit the start button after taking 4 minutes, it runs through this loop of like, our team is working to get you moving. Your car is good to go. Rider support will call you. And like, it just says that every time. Like after you wait for like 4 minutes, which is like, it's been there for a long time too. And I'm kind of wondering like, Is that intentional?
Figuring this out. Our team is working to get you moving. Please remain in the car with your seatbelt fastened. A rider support agent will call shortly to answer any questions. Your car is good to go. Figuring.
I would actually love to dig into that.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that's the.
Yeah, this is a silly question section.
Well, it actually could be a number of things, and I would love to actually understand it, and then I can follow up with you and give you a proper answer.
Okay.
What's going on and why?
Yeah. Okay. I think that about wraps it up for me today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to talk to you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
All right.
I mean, some other people don't like. Cruise doesn't even have an Android app, so like. Anyway, I won't put that in there. But
You're welcome to.
I've poked Oliver Cameron enough times, and he comes back at me like, "I swear, if I have to port it myself, we'll do it." But anyway, that's fun.